Yo, what up, YouTube? So, I want to talk to you guys about, what you might call is falling off the wagon, overeating, binge eating, or maybe just getting into something that you had no intention of that doesn't fit into your practice. And I know I've personally had this happen to me so many times, and I think I can shed light on some experiences that I've had and some ways to counter those experiences, or maybe see deeper as to what's going on. So I've now, well, I wouldn't say I worked with a few people, but I've shared my experiences with a few people and given them suggestions as to what has worked for me, and it has really helped them, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. If you binge eat at night, or overeat, or just get into some heavy mucus forming foods, do not fast the next day. And what I'm going to share with you definitely comes more from like a Mucusless Diet Healing System perspective, really focusing on transition. What I see so much, like so many people doing, including myself for so long, was to maybe get into something I didn't want to, just get that super high feeling, like you can't even feel your head, and you're just going in and you can't stop yourself, or I should say you're not stopping yourself, because you're totally connected with the beast at that point, or the bodily sensations, the beast. And then what happens is, and what I've done is I've tried to fast the next day, because it's just like, oh, you feel, hungover, miserable, whatever it may be. But I'm telling you this from what I've personally experienced, and others as well that I've talked to, is this creates a very vicious cycle of binge eating and fasting, and binge eating and fasting. And another note too, people will jump right into like heavy fruit periods right after binge eating, or like I should say, like using aggressive fruit the following day, just like lots of citrus or whatever it may be, just because they think they're going to try to clean their system out super fast. But I think it's important to take a step back and look at this from like Arnold Ehret's perspective of transition, and even maybe take a step back and look into the menus for weeks 1 and 2 and see what they are and why he uses them. And once again, a lot of the time when we get into these mucus forming foods that have our sensations just taken over the body, that they're going to be extremely dehydrating. So for me personally, what I like to do the following morning, say if I get into something, is start off with hot lemon water. This is just so soothing, and it feels so hydrating. And on another note too, what I now do is I always step back into a cooked realm when I overeat, because if you take a look at Ehret's suggestions, the vegetables and the stewed or baked fruits are going to be great movers. They're not going to stir up a lot of waste. They're not going to be aggressive dissolvers, which will induce further cravings, which will create a habitual cycle of staying in that mucus period. If it's light, here's some suggestions. So if you just get into some mucus and you didn't really like overindulge into it, maybe just taking a step back and having your first meal of that next day. I don't even recommend for maybe beginning practitioners to skip, have your meal like you would have normally had it, maybe like noon, 1, 2, whatever it may be. Maybe some dried prunes or figs, maybe stewed followed with apples. Great mover. I've recommended this before. Dried fruit with juice followed by juicy fruit, you know, maybe even blackberries. Professor Spear recommended this to me. It's worked tremendously for constipation and just getting that waste to move the next day if you've overindulged. Another one you could try if you're if your stomach or your, you know, intestinal tract is less clean, is to maybe do stewed fruit with a baked apple or a couple baked bananas, rather than doing dried fruit followed by, you know, fresh juicy fruits. Just because that juicy fruit will be a stronger, more aggressive dissolver, and when that waste is stirred up, it's going to induce the cravings of whatever you had. So for example, say you had, you know, chips, beans, I don't know, donuts, whatever it may be. When you aren't just totally moving it out of you and fruit hits it, that fruit's not only going to ferment, but it's also going to stir that waste up and induce further cravings. So yeah, maybe try that combo for the first meal. And for your second meal, I personally have really enjoyed steamed veggies. The steamed green veggies, such as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, zucchini, asparagus. These are efficient movers and heavy enough to create a broom to push that waste through. Like the sweet potato and the squash is like a little bit heavier, and it doesn't move as clean for me. It doesn't sweep as efficiently for me, although it is nice. It's like a backup, it's like a heavier option. You know, and I really suggest going back and taking a look at Arnold Ehret's transition menus. You know, like before your steamed veggies, a combo salad, like tender greens, grated carrot, grated celery, and then like a stewed veggie. You know, maybe even stewed spinach. Because it's that transition mindset. You don't want to binge, hop into a fast, and then, you know, that following evening your cravings are so intense you find yourself binge eating again. You want to take control, and you want to start gracefully transitioning out of it. So whenever something happens, you know, I fall back into mucus, I don't try to jump right into fruit again. You know, I'm falling back into the cooked mucusless options, and I'm putting my transition to practice. Because I do know the following morning, I usually wake up, or I have in the past, with a higher amount of anxiety, a higher amount of stress, and then that just like throws like my whole mental game off. And a lot of that has to do with the constipation, you know, these poisons that are now in your body. But once again, transition mindset. Don't beat yourself up. Enjoy what you do. Do what you enjoy. Once again, very important. Fruit sugar ferments in waste, whereas veggies and stewed fruit broom and move well. Another thing that's important that following day is at some point to do an enema, maybe a lemon juice enema. I usually do distilled water because it's harder to hold the lemon enema with mucus forming foods in my system. I would probably try to have at least a couple BMs before you do the enema. I usually do it in the evening because if I do it after my first bowel movement in the morning, I might not be moving as well through the rest of the day. And my system's like crazy efficient now, and if I eat mucus, it like, unless it's like just gnarly, which I haven't even done like this year, but you know, like I recently had some grains, and they moved through my system really well in the evening. Did an enema, got back into, you know, cooked mucusless phase. Now, you know, a few days down the road, I'm already back into mucusless juicy fruits. Right on. And then a really big one for me is reflecting on what happened. Not beating myself up, but reflecting on why I overate or why I got into mucus forming foods, whatever it may be, that didn't serve you. For example, sometimes eating a salad and not starting with fruit leads me to crave sugar after dinner, and then I'll just, go eat bananas or whatever, something sweet on top of my salad, and it's just a poor combination. Whereas I should have listened to myself, started out with maybe a piece of fruit and then had my salad. Um, let's see here. When I feel really stressed out or I have something going on throughout my day, I tend to seek comfort food. That's kind of where I've been drawn to throughout my life. And honestly, it's really just to numb the emotions that I do not want to be feeling. Um, and I'm drawn to, dehydration and that high that comes with the food that totally takes me away from whatever I was feeling. Because food is a drug, let me tell you. Another thing that triggers me to overeat at night is not eating enough or at all earlier in the day. Trying to push my meal so late that I'm just like, okay, it's now 6 in the evening and have been battling myself and really just not listening to my physiology, and maybe eating a light fruit meal or something at like 2 in the afternoon, and then I just try to eat one meal at night, and it usually leads to way overeating at that single meal. But not necessarily. It's that transition and really being in tune with the self. Another thing too, it's usually much easier to eat a smaller portion during the day, like when I'm busy and don't have a lot going on, and so it's just like boom, eat, you're done, you're on to your next thing. Whereas at night, you're more with yourself and you don't have like the same amount of stimulation going on. You're just, chilling in your house, you're dealing with your cravings. You don't really have the distractions from like how you're feeling and what you're craving or what emotions you don't want to be feeling. Like the beast is in your face, like the bodily sensations are just like more present. Some other things that might, lead me to falling into something that isn't serving me is like having others in the house who don't practice the Mucusless Diet Healing System, or just having foods in the house that aren't serving me. But usually like having roommates, or maybe you're living with your parents, or maybe you're living with a spouse or whoever it may be, and they're just not practicing the same thing as you. You've got cravings for something, and it's like literally being a crackhead and just keeping crack in your cupboard, and you're trying to not use it. So that's a pretty big one. So that may need to be like a conversation. But yeah, there are so many things going on, and I definitely think reflecting on what you personally have going on in your life would be like a great benefit. That way you can take steps to figure out what you need to do to really put your transition first. And that's really all I wanted to say on that. I think it's a pretty big topic, and man, it's like that transition mindset is so key. The enemas too, because you're going to have very intense physical cravings for what you physically have inside of you. On that note, 14 minutes. Giving you guys some crystal vibes. Picked up some new ladies from the gem fair. Not all these, but like this piece, this smoky, this double terminated quartz. Yeah, some good stuff. Also a tourmalinated aquamarine. Anyways, guys, I'm giving you the headshot. DLB949 at msn.com. You can also find me on Facebook. I just put up a page, Doug's Holistic Health Services. Check it out. Like it if you like it. Yeah, get at me. Peace, guys.